Hi, everyone, and welcome to the workshop, Identifying and Leveraging Your Sales Superpowers to Unleash Your Full Potential. I'm Kristie Jones. I'm going to be your host today. I have brought my assistant, Kristie K, along with me. So Christina will be monitoring the Q&A. So as we go along, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and Christina will monitor that and get questions to me along the way. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to throw up a poll question to get some information about sort of who's in the room and what do you know about yourself and your superpowers. So let me throw the poll question up here. Here we go. So while we're waiting for a couple more people to join, why don't you take a minute and answer the poll question? For those of you just joining us, we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. I threw up a poll question to see how many of you know your superpowers and your sales superpowers in order to unleash your full potential. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds as people are coming in to answer the poll question. Right now, it looks like we're at a dead heat of 50-50. 50% of you know and 50% of you don't. Looks like it's ever changing. So I'm interested to see how this turns out. All right, I'm going to take a few more, give a few more seconds here, and then I'll close the poll out. But again, currently we're in a dead heat. 50% of you are well aware of your superpowers. The other 50% are probably here today to help figure that out, which excites me. All righty, we're going to close out the poll. And we're going to leave that in a dead heat. So hopefully you're seeing the results. For sure, we've got a 50-50 split. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to today's workshop. Hopefully you got a chance to download the worksheet, the email that was sent to you. I should probably share that as well. So hold on, let me see if I can put that in the chat for you. I will add that to the chat. So if you did not get a chance to download that, we will get that up there for you. Give me just a second and I'll put that in the chat for you.
Kristie, while you're doing that, Dave has a question. Do you think it is possible to have more than one superpower?
Oh, I do, Dave, and we're going to talk about that shortly. All right, I put if you did not get a chance to download the worksheet, because I'm going to give you some time as we move through here. I just put that in the chat for you, so feel free to download that and print that off if you'd like to play along. So let's get started. What if you had a superpower that could change your entire life? You do. Today, I'm going to give you a roadmap to identifying, developing, honing, pressure testing, and leveraging your sales superpowers to help you unleash your full potential. I want you to own your own income. I want you to stop fearing failure and start seeing a future of success ahead of you. I want you to believe that your destiny is not determined by the chance or external circumstances that may surround you, but by the choices you make and the actions you take. I want you to embrace all of the possibilities that are available for you. I want you to control your career and where it's headed. And I want you to be able to leverage your superpowers to create the life that you want and deserve. As we noted earlier, 50% of you seem to know what your superpowers are. And perhaps some of you thought I was going to show up today with a big S on my chest and a red cape, and maybe you're still a little skeptical about my intentions. So let me start by first defining what a superpower is. A superpower is a special skill or trait you have which sets you apart from others and grants you a significant advantage personally or professionally. Let me repeat that. A superpower grants you a significant advantage personally or professionally. Did you know that Batman didn't have any real superpowers? Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, witnessed the murder of his parents when he was a child. And as a result of that tragic event, he vowed to fight crime and keep Gotham City safe so that what happened to his parents wouldn't happen to anyone else. He wasn't gifted with superhuman powers. He couldn't fly like Wonder Woman. He didn't have X-ray vision like Superman. He didn't have any super strength like the Hulk. And he couldn't make himself invisible like the Invisible Woman. What he does have, though, is grit and determination. He chose to work hard to develop himself physically, mentally, and intellectually so that he could outrun and outsmart the criminals. He wasn't born with any superpowers. Instead, he identified, developed, honed, pressure tested, and leveraged the strengths that he did have and turned them into finely tuned skills so that he could keep Gotham City safe. Like Batman, you probably weren't born with any actual superhuman powers, but the special skills you do have probably did appear earlier in your life, and you may or may not have recognized them as superpowers at the time. Generosity is my universal superpower, but on the tennis court, my tennis superpower and my tennis secret weapon is my forehand slice. What's a negative in golf is a positively nasty stroke in tennis. See, I grew up playing racquetball competitively, but when I was 29, I decided I wanted to pick up tennis. So I signed up for some group lessons. And after a few weeks, the instructor told me that I had a natural slice forehand, which is highly unusual for someone new to tennis. I shared with her about me growing up playing racquetball, and she smiled and said, "Ah, that explains it." See, the muscle memory that I had developed by hitting thousands of forehands on the racquetball court allowed me to naturally hit a slice forehand on the tennis court. A stroke that came naturally to me was a nightmare for my opponents to return. Thus, my tennis superpower was born. A superpower is something that you can have 100% confidence in, a skill that you can put into play when you need to close that big deal at the end of Q1 to hit your quota, save an at-risk client from churn, or negotiate a better deal with a channel partner or a bigger salary with your boss. The definition of identifying a superpower is this. It's definitely the superpower is something that you can have complete confidence in. So grab your worksheets and let's talk about how you're going to identify that. Here are some ways to think and ask questions to yourself and others to help you identify. What types of things do people come to me for advice about? What skills do I have that are easy for me, but hard for others? What have others told me that I'm good at? What do I just love doing? And what things or skills just come naturally to me? Grab that worksheet. I want you to take a few minutes and write down what you think some of your superpowers are. And then, if you're so bold, go ahead and share your superpowers in the chat. Remember, if you have questions, put those in the Q&A and Christina will address those as we go along. But if you'd like to share what your superpower is, go ahead and put those in the chat. And yes, to an earlier question, you may have more than one sales superpower. Let's take a couple of minutes. Christina, while they're working on that, are there any questions in the Q&A that we should address?
Nothing at this time.
Great. So your sales superpower, or your universal superpowers, as I like to call them, probably were developed at a younger age. You probably weren't aware that they were a superpower at the time. Maybe people just shared that you were really good at something or gave great advice around X. So anybody want to share in the chat the superpowers that they have identified that they have that will help them get to the top 10% of sales professionals in their company or their industry? Who's going to be brave?
Kristie, it is showing that the chat might be disabled
Oh,
on their end. So can we make
okay.
sure that it's turned on? I think you have those capabilities.
Yep, let's throw those in, then let's throw those into the Q&A then. Let's go ahead and throw any thoughts you have in the Q&A.
Okay. All right. So Tom Connolly has shared. Thank you for this session. I believe these are my superpowers: empathy, resilience, curious. He's a problem solver, and executor / take action.
Those are great. Those are amazing. We know, I don't think we talked enough about empathy before the pandemic hit, but now that's a common word that we do talk about, the need for empathy. Tom, I'm also, I call it firefighter, also a professional firefighter and problem solver. I also have a sales superpower around questioning. I've always been naturally curious. My son calls it nosy, but I've always wanted to know everything about everything. And so I'm very good at discovery. Anyone else want to share?
So Kara shares that her superpowers are competitor, includer, truth speaker, and she's also curious. And we have an anonymous attendee who said kindness, sincerity, and curiosity.
Nice. Kara, as I already have noted, I'm highly competitive on and off the court. There really isn't a game out there that I don't think is worthy of competition. But I like how you said includer and truth speaker. I don't hear those very often. But an includer is a superpower and probably really does benefit you in the sales world. And I love truth speaker. Again, most people would call me blunt, but I'm going to change mine to truth speaker going forward.
We also have from Dave Tegmeyer, ability to simplify the complex into language everyone can understand. He
Nice.
connects with people well, asks good open-ended questions, authenticity, and empathy.
Nice. Those are great. All right, keep those coming while I move on to the next step in getting to leveraging your superpowers. Let's talk about developing your superpower. So now that you've identified what your superpowers are, you're going to need to further develop them so that you can have confidence to put them in play anytime you need. Developing refers to something that has been brought to a more advanced state through a gradual process of growth. Your superpowers probably started as strengths and have gradually developed over time, whether you intended that to happen or not. My slice forehand has gradually developed over the years because every time I get on the court, the situation, opponent, court conditions And in the summer, weather conditions are very different. Every time I'm put in a new situation on the court, that makes my slice forehand a little bit better than it was the last time I stepped on the court. But it doesn't get exponentially better every time I play. Instead, it improves gradually. So I want you to look back down at what you wrote down as your superpowers. And I want you to think about how you've knowingly or unknowingly been developing them over the years. What different situations, conditions, or even people have helped you develop your strengths into superpowers? Let's take a couple more minutes, grab that worksheet, and write down how you've been developing your superpowers over the years. And as you're completing your worksheet, if you'd like to share in the Q&A how you've been developing your superpowers over the years, we would love to get your story. How have you knowingly or unknowingly been developing strengths into superpowers over the years? Who would like to share? Maybe type some into the chat. Christine, it looks like we may have had some superpower hangover from the identifying.
Yes. So Dave added that he likes to deliver solutions that make sense, or that is one of his superpowers. And Lynette weighed in that her superpowers are listening, encouragement, motivating, and generosity.
Nice. All right. Does anybody want to share how they've been developing their superpowers over the years? Okay, we're going to move on, but if it comes in, oh, do we get one in? Looks like maybe.
So Dave shared that his mine have been developed by being a career salesperson, which has made me a lifelong student of personal development, doing the inner work to make myself a better person. Kara, as an includer, inviting outsiders to meetings. She puts in parentheses, she's a glorified connector.
Love it.
As a competitor, group sports and fitness has helped her hone that or develop that.
Nice. Mike, I totally agree. I think, in order to understand this, you have to have self-awareness. So I think that's one of the traits I'm always looking for when I'm hiring sales professionals is, are they self-aware about their sales superpowers and how they got there? And then a lifelong student for sure. Most of the top 10 percenters I know are taking a proactive approach to their personal and professional development.
Tom Connolly adds, for empathy, I've been a sales leader on and off in my career. I try to always start with understanding what's going on personally with the person to understand the KPIs and metrics in their business. I also agree on lifelong learning, striving to do better each day.
Nice. My motto for that, Tom, is the work to get to the top doesn't actually happen at work. It happens outside of work. And I think those of you who are top 10 percenters understand that.
David Shore weighs in. He continuous self-education and extending comfort boundaries for engagements in small groups and business meetings is how he has gradually developed.
Nice. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I like that, right? I also like the word boundaries because I think a lot of times in order to get to the top, you have to have boundaries. They say the most successful professionals know when to say no. So thanks for sharing. Those were great. That's great feedback, Christina. We're getting a lot of good engagement today.
Yes. Thank you all.
All righty. So now let's move on to honing. Now that you understand how you develop them, we want to hone your superpowers. Honing refers to something that has been refined, perfected, or sharpened as a result of deliberate effort or practice. What made my slice exponentially better was my decision one summer to hire a coach to work with me so that I could make that slice forehand really nasty. I wanted to be able to make it move inches as soon as the ball came into contact with the ground so that my opponent would think that they're in the exact right spot they need to be on the court, only to find themselves out of position and having to make an impossible shot. That's if they even got to the ball. So I spent that entire summer honing my slice forehand, 1 hour a week with my coach and 2 to 3 hours a week at the wall. The wall is a 2-story brick wall, one side of the gymnasium at the middle school down the street from me. The wall actually turned out to be a formidable opponent. Why? Because the brick was imperfect and unpredictable. See, I could have gone to the high school down the street that was a lot closer to me and practiced hitting against the smooth wooden backboard, but then my ball would have come back to me the same way every single time. And that just wasn't going to simulate real life. Life has cracks, imperfection, and is unpredictable. So I want you to practice putting yourself into hard situations. That's what makes you stronger and better equipped to handle what's thrown at you. And that's what the wall did for me. It made me ready for when my opponent mishit the ball or a big gust of wind came out of nowhere. What amount of effort are you willing to put into honing your superpowers? How many hours a week are you willing to dedicate to perfecting them? And how will you go about practicing your superpowers? With those of you on the call today with a quota, maybe asking questions is one of your superpowers. So how much time are you going to spend honing that skill? I mean, the kind of practice where a coworker plays prospect or customer and you don't know how they're going to answer a question until they do. And then you have to think on your feet to come up with the next best follow-up question. If uncovering pain is your superpower, how are you practicing not only uncovering pain, but understanding in actual dollars the financial impact that pain is having on their business? Some of you sell a service, and that's really hard. Some of you sell a product. But if you can get your customer or prospect to quantify the impact the problem is having and what you're selling them is less than that dollar amount, well, isn't that going to make closing the deal that much easier? Maybe handling objections is your superpower. I teach that we handle objections by asking questions to seek to better understand. I'm sure there's no one in this room trying to talk their way out of an objection, right? So you have to create mental memory around questions that you're going to ask when a certain objection is posed by your prospect, coworker, or maybe even your boss. If your sales role is customer success rep or account managers, then your superpower is creating raving fans, perhaps. Now, I'd like you to get really honest with yourself. I want you to ask yourself if you're even willing to put in any time or effort into honing your superpower. If the answer is yes, then I want you to write down how you're going to practice and refine your superpower. And then next to that statement, I want you to write down a number. And I want that number to represent the amount of time you're willing to spend each week committing to honing your superpower. Let's take a few minutes. How will you deliberately hone and practice your superpower? And how much time are you willing to dedicate? Christina, there seems to be a super interesting question in the Q&A. Would you like to share?
Yes. What it you would like to have a superpower that you don't have, Can you develop a superpower from zero?
This is question of the day for sure. This is the $1 million question. I think the answer is maybe. I hate to be vague about that because I don't like maybe, but I do believe that you probably have to have some strengths around this area. So as an example, based on how my body is built, chances of me ever becoming a gymnast, even though I desperately wanted to be a gymnast, were slim to none. I was born with hips that turn in. I wore leg braces as a child, and I desperately wanted to be a gymnast and then a cheerleader as I got into high school. But my body does not allow me to do the splits, which was a prerequisite for doing either of those. So although I desperately wanted to, I desperately wanted to bear my leotard and get on the uneven bars, it just wasn't meant to be for me. So I do think you have to have some baseline, but if you have any skill in that area at all, then yes, I believe if you're dedicated to doing it, if it's not something that comes completely naturally to you, you probably will have to have a coach. I'm a big coach person. It seems like I got a coach for darn near everything. But I truly believe that if I really want to do something and I don't have prior experience doing it, then chances of me being able to figure it out on my own will either be nil, like it will either not happen for me or it will take me an exorbitant amount of time. So, I think that if you have some inkling of anything, then yes, you will be able to develop it first into a strength, by the way, and then into a superpower. But you may need some help along the way if it's something that doesn't come completely naturally to you. Christina, how about any other comments?
From the last segment, Dave added when you were talking about, pushing outside of your comfort zone, that his growth begins at the end of his comfort zone. Just sort of kind of tying up those thoughts that we had.
Awesome. And how about anybody who has shared how they're going to hone, be deliberate about practicing and making sure that they can maximize their superpower anytime they want?
Yes. Dave also says that he has an accountability partner that he practices with.
Nice.
Likes to block out 1 hour 3 times a week to practice with that partner,
Wow.
and also has a budget for hiring a coach every year. And then he reads.
Yay. Nice. I love that. You know what? I think a lot of companies and sales leaders, I'm seeing more and more are putting together where they're giving employees individual budgets where they can go to webinars, seminars, have a session with a coach, those type of things. So again, like I said, like I'm a big believer in coach. Mentor is also a very important person to have in your life. So choose those carefully. Any other thoughts, group, from how you going about honing?
Yes. Karen asks, what advice would you give when you know the superpower, but not sure how to practice? As a competitor, 6 hours a week for workouts and training is
Nice.
part of her practice there. And as
Great.
with her curiosity superpower, 1.5 hours a week for learning books, videos, etc.
Perfect. Kara, are you also willing to share the superpower that you have, but you're not sure how to practice, so we can brainstorm here together? Truth
Truth
speaker.
speaker.
Um, I don't know that you can actually necessarily put down a number for that, but as a truth speaker, I think the hardest thing about being a truth speaker is consistently being a truth speaker, i.e. in scary situations, right? When you're, in a room full of executives, when you have to tell a prospect that this really isn't a fit for them, or that you don't believe that their budget is going to be big enough in order for them to purchase what you have. I think the true speaker gets harder when it's personal, right? When it's someone who's close to you or that you truly care about. Sometimes it's hard to be a true speaker. We're going to stay with me, Kara, because the next topic is going to help you in some of these situations for sure. But I believe putting yourself in hard situations, just sort of like the reason I chose the wall instead of the backboard was that it was going to be a formidable opponent. Other items,
We
Christina?
we also have from Kevin, Continue engaging with product development on value stories and customer success on best practices / voice of the customer. 15 to 20 minutes a few times a week. And
Good
Dave
job, Kevin.
added, I have learned that investing my money in my growth is a non-negotiable.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to personally put your money on the line in order to get better at something, you're going to be more dedicated to that. Okay, Kara, this next one's for you, my friend. So we talked about that. Some of the things that we covered here that could be your superpowers. All right. Next is for Kara. Okay, Kara, I think this one's for you. Now that you've been deciding how to hone it, we need to talk about pressure testing. Pressure testing is a rigorous process designed to assess something's resilience. After the hours I'd spent with my coach and at the wall that summer, I knew that my forehand slice had improved. What I didn't know was how it would hold up on Sunday afternoons during a USTA match when my team needed my court for us to win the entire match and beat our rivals. The only way to know was to pressure test it under the worst conditions. Down 1-5 in a third set tiebreak. Putting my new nasty slice into play under those conditions was the only way I would know for sure that I could count on it under the most stressful of conditions. The decision to put my new slice in play was going to require me to put on my big girl tennis skirt and make a decision, a mental decision to take a risk. For all of those of you who've competed at anything, sports, first chair flute, or the annual family Monopoly game, you know that the decision to go for it or play it safe is all mental. And the only thing that's really on the line, your ego. You'll never have the confidence to use your superpowers during the most stressful situations if you don't have the mental toughness to try it the first time. So this question is going to be a little bit harder on your worksheet. I want you to take a few minutes and think of a couple of situations that you could test out your superpowers so that you will have full confidence that you can count on them when the pressure is on and the stakes are high. Think about hard or maybe unpredictable situations that you could use to pressure test your sales superpowers. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Christina, while people are thinking about a situation that might be a little scary for them to pressure test their superpowers, do we have some other items that people have shared?
Yes. Tom shared that he invests in reading daily to help expand his strengths. 1 hour daily exercising, more for his mental health. He's not yet hired a coach, but is thinking that that will help him unlock values and strengths that he, hasn't been able to figure out how to hone.
Nice. Yep, I'm all about the Tom, you and I are in the same boat. I've always been an exerciser since, again, a very young age because I started playing racquetball at 14. But I tell people I do it for my mental health. Physical health is just a bonus. It's what keeps me grounded.
And then Dave said that he believes he must be other-centered versus self-centered.
Nice. That goes back, I think, to Kara's inclusion. She's an includer. I like that. All right, who would like to share The scary situations you have to be willing to put yourself in order to know for sure that you can count on your superpowers under the most stressful of situations. This one's definitely, I think, the hardest question to answer is thinking ahead.
So Kara says that when coaching a manager, address tasks that are not being completed for a new sales rep.
Okay. So an uncomfortable conversation for sure. Kara, I would love to know what your position is at the organization you're in, or what your job role is, has been over the years. Because coaching a manager is definitely, that's an uncomfortable situation. Good. Who else?
She's training development with focus on sales.
Yep. Makes sense. Good. Sales enablement sounds like. All right. Who else would like to share a situation? There we go. Oh, a new joiner. Good.
Guillermo says, I'm pressure testing my skills on a first-time customer engagement.
Ooh, I like it. Yep. Scary, right? Don't have maybe a relationship fully baked out yet. So trying them out on a new prospect or a new customer. Good.
Dave says, number one, he's asking a question that he's afraid to ask. Number two, take action on doing something different that's way out of his comfort zone, like posting content on LinkedIn daily. Number three, being vulnerable and authentic, like interviewing for a new employer after 18 years at one place.
Wow. All of those sound a little scary. There's lots of scary questions, by the way, in the sales arena that we're afraid to ask. Scary questions like, what could keep this from happening? Who are the dissenters in the room going to be if you're making a presentation? Who do I have to win over? I think there's a lot of scary questions, but again, as a result of, I'd rather have a no, like I had a employee back in the day, one of my favorite employees, James, put this on his signature file. My second favorite word is no. And so again, in order for your funnel to not be a fantasy, in order for you to be able to make sure that you're gonna be able to hit quota and have the right deals in the pipeline, asking scary questions is a necessary evil.
David Shore weighs in, honing every day with awareness and interactions, but can have focused dedication of 4+ hours per week. Pre-gaming meetings with our team before convening with prospects, asking team questions, and have readied responses.
Nice. I'm working with a client and they gave a big presentation a couple of weeks ago to a prospect that they truly wanted to win the deal on. And as I was helping them prep, it came clear that they did not have a pre-meeting scheduled as a team. And they had definitely identified questions they thought were going to come up, but what they didn't have identified is who was going to answer them, who the subject matter expert within their organization was going to be. So I asked them to put 45 minutes on the calendar in order to cover that. And that made a big difference for them. They felt more comfortable. They weren't stepping over and looking around the room as to who's going to answer that. And it wasn't even looking around the room because they were all on Zoom, which makes it even more awkward. So thanks. Those are great. I love the pressure test ideas. All right, let's bring it all home. Now that you have identified, developed, honed, and pressure tested your superpowers, you need to leverage them. Leveraging your superpowers is the ability to influence situations or people so that you can control the outcome. I want you to use your superpowers to control the outcome of situations so we can put you in a position to win. So let's go back to my forehand slice. My forehand slice is actually at its best when I'm playing an opponent who hits with topspin. Meaning, unlike my slice, which makes the ball have underspin, a ball hit with topspin will spin forward and hit the ground and bounce up. This allows me to hit the ball in my slice's sweet spot. Being able to hit my slice exactly where it can be its nastiest will allow me to control the game, set, and hopefully the match. So picking the right opponents to leverage my slice against requires a little bit of pre-work, which normally takes place during the 15-minute warm-up that opponents get before the match begins. I use that time to determine the type of stroke that my opponent is hitting. And when I see they hit with topspin, a big grin comes across my face because I know it's going to be a frustrating day for them and a really fun day for me. Since not every situation will provide the perfect condition for leveraging your superpowers, you need to use information you have based on previous situations to give you clues so that you can determine when to pull the superpowers out of your bag of tricks and put them into play. So let's go back to the worksheet. What type of situations do you think putting your superpowers in play will allow you to influence and control the outcome of that situation? I'm super excited to hear the answers to these. Take a couple of minutes. All righty. Christina, anybody sharing how they're going to be able to
We
put
have
themselves in the
we
right
have
position?
yes, we have a one left over from
Okay.
the pressure testing. Tom shared that he thinks that a way to really pressure test his curiosity um, within the startup world versus his comfort zone, which has been working for large software companies.
Awesome. Yeah, Tom, I moved away. I worked for a Fortune 500 retailer out of college. For the first 8 years out of college, I worked for a Fortune 500 or in some cases a Fortune 100 company and got disenchanted with that corporate world. And 8 years after that, I started working for a startup. And as you probably already know, I've been living in the startup world for quite some time. So it definitely fits my personality. I say it is fast paced and personality packed in the startup world. But you also have to have a high risk tolerance and be okay with ambiguity. So my motto for this is, if you want to play in the startup world, you need to be more willow than oak. All right. Who else would like to share about, again, leveraging is bringing this all home. How are you going to pick the right situation so that you can actually control the outcome?
Kara shares that rolling out a new tool or resource for the team to use and owning the outcome no matter what.
Yep. Super scary. Because I care because I live in that startup SaaS world. We always say, like, that the software, the people who put themselves on the line and buy software, they're hoping to be a hero, right? And so we as sales professionals we bear that cross as well. The pressure is on us too to make sure that you can be the hero, that there aren't any glitches with implementation or rolling it out. And you're in a really, again, as a sales enablement person, you're in a really precarious situation because not only do you have to choose the right sales tools, you have to implement them and roll them out and train on them throughout the organization. So it's a big job. Anyone else want to share how you might pick the right situation? What does the right situation look like for your superpowers? All righty. Kristie and I will hang out for a little bit after. I'm going to come into the closing part here, but we're going to hang out a little after. If you have other questions or you'd want to share some information with the group, feel free to do so, and we'll hang out for a few minutes after. So if you take this worksheet that you just completed and you think that you can put it under your pillow tonight and the superpower fairy is going to show up and sprinkle you with fairy dust and you're going to wake up tomorrow morning with superpowers, I've got some news for you. That's not going to happen. Instead, if you make the commitment today to identify, develop, hone, pressure test, and leverage your superpowers, you will own your income and your life. You will start seeing a future of success ahead of you. You will believe that your destiny is determined by the choices you make and the actions you take. You will embrace all of the possibilities that are available in the world for you, and you will control your career and where it's headed. I want you to have and be able to create the life that you want and deserve. Unleash your full potential. Thank you guys so much for coming today. Christina, it looks like we've gotten some feedback in the Q&A. I would love to hear about anybody who's decided that leveraging piece or just has some overall feedback about their superpowers after spending some time with us today.
We have some things shared and also some questions. Dave
Good.
said that situations where he can just have a good conversation by demonstrating genuine care about his prospect. He does this by asking great open-ended questions, listening, and keeping it simple. These business or sales conversations, I think is what he corrected it to say, always lead to business.
Nice. I like that.
And then Guillermo asks, can your superpower be the knowledge of an industry or the expertise about a particular process or function?
Absolutely, Guillermo. When I help onboard new sales professionals, I onboard them under 4 topic areas. And the very first one that we go over, and the most important one, I think, is industry. So we train them on industry, product, sales process, and sales tools. And if you're not, I mean, just being an industry expert will put you ahead of a lot of other sales professionals in the industry. Not everybody is a student of the game, as I say it. And so if you really are a subject matter expert in your industry, that means you're attending association, it's industry association events. That means you're following influencers in your industry. That means you understand the trends, you understand where things are coming from, and your prospects and customers will see you more of a subject matter expert and an advisor than necessarily a sales professional. So I absolutely think that subject matter expertise in your industry is a superpower.
Dave also said, thank you and great content.
Dave, thank you for participating so much.
Guillermo says, thanks, super helpful. And Tom, thank you. This is super helpful.
Great. I appreciate everybody coming today. If we are not already connected on LinkedIn, please reach out and introduce yourself and let me know what the number one most helpful thing that you learned today or the number one tip that you're going to put into place today. I appreciate everyone's time and attention today. Christine and I will hang out for a couple of more minutes and see if there are any other questions that come up or thoughts.
Lots of thank yous from Jennifer, Kara, David.
Good. And David, I hope you enjoy the book as well. I just released a book called Selling Your Way In, the playbook for setting your income and owning your life. This workshop came definitely out of the book for sure. So hopefully those of you who have not had a chance to pick up my book will do so. Thank you, Kara. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Janet.
Did you see Jennifer's comment?
I did not. Oh, good. Thank you, Jennifer. I had closed out the Q&A. I'm so happy. Please let me know on LinkedIn what your favorite part is. Thank you. Guillermo, great. Yeah, for those of you who are reading the book or have read the book, I would love for you to do me a favor and write a review where you purchased the book, and then reach out to me and let me know what your favorite part was, what your favorite section was. Thank you, Barbara, for coming. All right, thanks everyone. We'll be doing this again. The attendance was great, the participation even better. So looking forward to another session. Thank you.